Janet. Now.
All right, good afternoon, because it is after 12, and we're going to talk about when the diagnosis is dementia, the 3 action steps you should take right now, because I think it's really important for you to do something when you get that early diagnosis. Our preference is you to get stuff done prior to diagnosis, but if you're getting that early diagnosis, we definitely want to make sure that you're doing all the right things. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kim Hegwood. I'm an estate planning elder law attorney. And so in the Clear Lake area, but we serve Texas families, we serve families all over Texas. I unfortunately learned elder law the hard way. My grandparents started declining. And as they did that, I realized their attorney didn't give them all the information they should have given him. So definitely was problematic. And so I tell this story more at length, but we don't have a lot of time today. So we're just going to kind of keep moving along to make sure I've got plenty of time to answer questions should you need me to do that. So before you begin, I guess the question always becomes is, do you have a plan in place for incapacity or the need for future care? Because most people don't think about that. They think, oh, do I have a will? Your will takes care of death. For us, I tell people death is easy. We plan more for incapacity than we ever have in our entire lives. And so, especially because, all those baby boomers are now getting older, we're living longer, not necessarily living better. So you're getting a lot more diagnoses that are now kind of following under the dementia umbrella. When we say dementia umbrella, Alzheimer's is actually under dementia, Parkinson's is under dementia, a few other things. There's lots of different types of dementia. So you always want to be very clear about some of those things. So what should you do? We always want you to see an elder law attorney, but we're going to walk you through some things that you need to do. But you're probably asking yourself, what is an elder law attorney? We laugh and tell people it's estate planning on steroids. It's not just death and distribution. We're planning for incapacity and then death and then potential inheritance. And when we're doing planning for clients, we're also planning for how to take care of the spouse at home. For those of you that are married, when you've got a spouse that's not going to be able to stay at home, is going to eventually need long-term care or long-term care facility. So how you access benefits, if you're a veteran, there's some VA benefits, but you got to qualify for those as well. There's Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare pays for certain things, but Medicaid, for the most part, is the #1 payer of long-term care in this country. And then when you've lost that one that's been ill, is there enough money to take care of you and income to make sure you're okay? So we're always looking at those things to make sure that, especially if you're married, that we can take care of both of you the best we can. So when you get that diagnosis, you're always, a lot of times it's your general practitioner, your primary care physician that may say, oh, you have dementia. For us, we tell you, I want you to go see a specialist. You need to go see a neurologist. Because the reality is there's lots of different types of dementia, and we want to make sure that you're getting the right care, the right medication, because it makes a difference in the type of dementia you have, what you should be taking. So the earlier the diagnosis, the better planning you can do. And there's lots of good medicines now that kind of slow the process, and you want to make sure you're on the right medication that's going to do what you need it to do. So it's really important to get that second opinion. If it's not your first, go see that neurologist, get that referral, go in, get tested, see what type you have. And then there's legal concerns. So we want you to meet with an elder law attorney. I can't tell you how important that is. I have clients that have come in the last 2 days with power of attorneys that were done by just general practitioners that won't do anything for long-term care, almost nothing. Will it work for some things? Yes, but when you're planning for long-term care and you're needing to do the things that we need to do to protect assets and to make sure we can qualify you for Medicaid if necessary, because a lot of people qualify for Medicaid and you don't have to be broke and you don't have to be poor. So, but we have to do certain things, and your power of attorney has to allow us to do those things. So we want you to meet with a professional, one that knows exactly what needs to go into your power of attorneys. And so it's what we do. We do this every day, all day long, and even our power of attorneys, we prepare the same power of attorneys when you're 18 as we do when you're 60. because you never know what's going to happen, and you want to make sure you can plan whichever way you need to plan all during your lifetime. So what are the legal documents that are necessary? We're going to talk about those. And so when you're thinking about disability planning, you're thinking about powerful powers of attorneys. And we're talking specifically today in this one, we're talking about your statutory durable power of attorney, your financial power of attorney, the one that's that's really going to be able to do everything that you want to do when you're planning for disability. Your gifting is always consistent with your estate plan. So if we're using a power of attorney to do gifting to help qualify you for public benefits, it will be done exactly how your current estate plan is done unless you're signing the documents. We don't change your planning when we're using a power of attorney. You have the ability to hire family members or agents depending on their qualifications. The VA doesn't care, Medicaid does. Medicaid says families are supposed to take care of you and you can't pay them unless they meet certain criteria. You have a nurse in the family, somebody with a CNA, certified nurse's aide, things like that. You have to have qualifications. We want to have the power to create, potentially amend trust, depending on the type of trust you have. And we want to make sure that the client's distribution wishes are taken care of. So how you truly want what's left to go, we want to make sure that occurs for you. And the key to really having that powerful power of attorney is unlimited gifting. And I know that kind of freaks a lot of people out, but I need to be able to gift everything you have if I needed to. Now, that sounds kind of scary, so you want to be very careful about who you put in that power of attorney. It must be somebody that you trust with your life that's only going to do what needs to get done and nothing else. So if you can't, if you're not able to have someone that you trust, then you want to be rethinking about who goes in there. And when we're talking about unlimited gifting, we're talking about legitimate Medicaid powers, the things that we can do that Medicaid is perfectly fine with, okay? And you have the power to create and fund irrevocable trust. We do a lot of irrevocable trust planning. And our irrevocable trust are income-only defective grantor trust. And you're thinking, wow, does that sound like a lot of legal terms? It's an irrevocable trust that lets you use the trust. You get all the income. Principal goes to your beneficiaries. So you're very careful about what kind of things can truly go in there and do it well. You want to be able to transfer real estate from spouse to spouse or a caregiver child. So if you've been taking care of a parent for 2 years, living in their home, taking care of them for 2 years prior to going to the nursing home, I can deed the property over to you. Having said that, you must have that as your homestead. You can't have another house. Your driver's license has to say mom and dad's. I mean, you have to truly live there and not own another homestead. So that catches some people off guard that move in with parents and, they try to maybe rent their house out while they're living with mom and dad and taking care of them. So it can be a problem. And so also too, if you have a disabled child, if there's a benefit to having a disabled child, doing Medicaid planning is it. Guys, you can transfer all your assets to a trust for a disabled child and qualify for Medicaid the next day. It is an exempt transfer to a disabled child. So, but having said that, it has to go into a first party trust. What that means is if something happens to that child, Medicaid gets paid back first. So there's a win on one hand and a slap on the other. So they try to help you, but not entirely. Very good, powerful power of attorneys avoid guardianship. I tell clients all the time, costs almost, it's very minimal cost to do good power of attorneys. Guardianship, on the other hand, is very expensive. And the only people that make money doing guardianship are attorneys. I have no problem making money doing guardianship. I'd much prefer you to save your money and take a trip instead, because guardianship can get very expensive. Your power of attorneys should be able to have the power to use legitimate action. What that means is your agent has the ability to sue somebody if they're not doing what you want them to do. And you also want to make sure that the power of attorney can protect that client's desire to protect the spouse. And what I should have put on there is the ability for mom to protect the kids. Not that dads don't do a good job, but moms are really worried about the kids. Usually more so, not all the time, but a lot. So in your power of attorneys, you're going to have agents and successor agents, and we want them truly in my office, we want them one after the other. You have the ability to say, is your power of attorney effective now or upon incapacity? I will tell you, if you do it upon incapacity, it's a problem. It's going to take time because doctors have to put in writing you're incapacitated. It's not an easy thing because doctors don't like to do that. And so they don't like, especially your primary care physicians, don't like to make that determination. So your powers can be general, they can be specific. We want you to be able to do trust creation. We want you to be able to do gifting. And we want you to be able to self-deal if you're a child, okay? Because if you're the agent and you're the child, you're the agent of the power of attorney, you're trying to take care of mom and dad, and I need to gift to you, you have to have this provision in there or I can't deal for you. And so, so we asked them, we're back to that. Do you have that estate plan in place? So we want to make sure that the plan we put in place works for you. So in my office, as an example, all the professionals work together. So we work with your financial advisors, we work with your CPAs, because the goal is to get a nice, well-rounded plan that everybody's on the same page with, and it's done to protect maybe the spouse at home from long-term care, to protect children, disabled children, whoever in your life that you want to make sure you leave something for. Now, I don't care if you leave anything to your family. I hope you have as much fun as you can stand with it. But if you want to do something different, then you always want to have a good plan in place. You've worked hard for your money. We want to make sure it goes where you want it to go. So what's a dementia-friendly law firm? So one of the things that you're going to find, in my law office is because we're transitioning to more of a dementia-friendly law firm. We're very concerned about making sure that care options are available. Where do you go if you need to go into a nursing home, or do you need to do assisted living? What kind of health care you need? So, we're going to be implementing a lot more things in our office that's going to help you get there. Really kind of from start to finish, from the time you get diagnosed to the time that your beneficiaries are taking control of assets. What all needs to get done during that time period? And as we're doing all these things, the question becomes is how do I pay for care? Okay. Because nursing home care can start anywhere from, they'll tell you the base pay might be $4,500. I'm going to tell you, if they tell you $4,500, count on $6,000. Memory care can be anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 to $15,000, depending on what part of Houston you're in. Now, other counties, other areas, maybe not so much, but if you're in a more expensive part of Houston, you're going to pay a lot more for care. So how do you do that? And you think, oh, if I start paying that kind of money monthly, what am I going to have left over? So then you're thinking about, okay, now she's got me worried. What do I do today? Okay. So we're going to kind of walk you through this so that you understand the kind of steps that you're going to need to be doing. And so a lot of people are like, what if we don't plan ahead, but now we're in what we call a crisis plan? If you don't plan ahead, you will be in what we call a crisis plan. Planning ahead, you have options. In a crisis plan, you don't have options. You have very limited choices about what you can do to pay for care. So does any of this hit home? And so, you got to keep in mind of what do we need to do and to make sure that we're okay. Because 8 out of every 10 people are going to find themselves in a nursing home, even if it's just for rehabilitation after a hospital stay. We want to make sure that you're prepared, and then we hope you never have to go. And so, but if you are prepared and never have to go, you've got a win-win plan in place, and that's the kind of plan we want you to have. We're very much in a hugely very supportive of support groups. There's a lot of good support groups. So if you want, take a picture of this. If you got your phone, I want you to have this. I'm sure Catherine and them will probably provide some of this stuff for you later, but if not, definitely take a picture of this. We want you to have, and these are just some of the support groups. There's a lot more out there, so that we want to make sure that you're getting everything that you can. So take a quick snapshot at it. I'm going to pause just for a minute. Take a quick snapshot so that you have these links and where you need to go down the road to make sure you're getting the things you need. In my office, we have what we call our You're Not Alone books. We have your Living with Dementia. We have your Living with Alzheimer's. We have one living as a caregiver for someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia, because the goal is to give you as much education as possible. We have lots of other resources. We talked earlier before we actually did the recording, the Life Happens with Kim Hegwood podcast, tons of information. It's on the Hegwood Law Group YouTube channel. Super important to get lots of good things as, as you're planning for that second half of life. What all kind of things are you thinking about? And we have been blessed with some excellent people that have been on the podcast with tons of good information. I'm always amazed at what you can find when you're looking for it. And I can thank Catherine for a lot of those good people on there. So if we're going to continue some free resources, we can get you a dementia action plan, that checklist to follow when you've got that diagnosis. In my office, if you want more, there's at hegwoodlaw.com/library, you can get lots of our other workshops. And we also, if you go to hegwoodlaw.com, there's free downloads on our website. I want you to take advantage of those because they're free. We want you to have them. So take advantage, take a snapshot of this screen, and definitely download all the things that you need, because every little bit of information we give you helps. And my goal is to educate you as much as possible. I know it sounds crazy, but I want you to be a good informed consumer. You get to make better decisions the more knowledge that you have. And so that's one of the reasons we do these as often as we do, to make sure that you can do that. In my office, we do offer you a complimentary strategy session. It will only be complimentary through the end of the year. After that, we're going to go back to charging for our consultations. I always just tell clients how that works. You can do strategy sessions in person and Zoom. When you're thinking about working with the elder law attorney, you want to make sure that you take your documents in place. You want to see I would want to see what your current documents are. And then from there, we're going to be working on a plan of what's going to take you to the next step. And so answer all the questions you have about your unique situation, because we want you to have that to be able to answer those specific questions. When you're done, you'll know what you need to have in place, what your options are, having that peace of mind. And having a plan in place gives you that peace of mind. So whether you use our elder law firm or another elder law firm, having that plan always gives you that peace of mind that you have. And then you can get a written plan with recommendations, work with you to implement the plan, prepare any legal documents, and most importantly, we're going to walk you through the process from start to finish. And so we always give you an opportunity to schedule a session to come in with us if you want. It's not necessary, because I'm happy to give you all kinds of information, without having to do that. But if you want to, it's always an option. Now, I think I'm good on time. So, and I hope so, Catherine. I made this kind of short because I wanted to be able to, answer as many questions as I could while people were on here. So guys, if you have a question, I want you to feel free to answer, to put them in the chat, so that way we can answer them. I promise you, if you have the question, there's going to be somebody else on here that has the same question. And we want to make sure that you're able to do that. So don't hesitate to, we've got some time. So I want you to take advantage of the time, so that, what else can I tell you? So I was worried I wasn't going to have enough time, so I did the shorter presentation. Now I wish I'd have done the bigger one. And so, 'cause there's a lot of good stuff in there. And so definitely we can definitely help you, do whatever you need to do, in that. Where did I go? Chat. And so, so definitely don't hesitate to, to ask and that sort of thing. So, can you have a joint? Let's see. Let's go back up. Perfect. Do we have a Houston office? We have an office in the Galleria. I'm hoping that's Houston for you. And because while my address here where I'm at right now says Houston, we're in the Clear Lake area. We have an office near Katy, more in the Memorial area as well. And so, but we do a lot of our stuff. I've got clients all over the state. When COVID hit and you did everything, so much stuff virtual, it's not difficult to do things anywhere, no matter where you're at. So Christy, you ask about having a joint power of attorney for 2 children. We never recommend that. And I'll tell you why. If your kids don't live together, if they can't agree on everything, it creates a problem. If you're going to open up a bank account or do anything with the bank account, everybody's going to require them to be in the same place at the same time. It's just problematic. What we recommend to our clients is have your kids be transparent. Transparent. I can't stress that enough. You want your kids to give the other kid hey, viewing capabilities so they can see the bank statements, or send them the bank statements every month that says, hey, here's the money that came in and here's what I spent. Just be transparent. You never have problems if you're transparent. You do have problems when your kids are secretive and you end up in litigation all the time. It never fails. And you're in guardianship because the kids can't agree and they're fighting. I ended up in a jury trial over a guardianship because the kids were fighting. Can you imagine? All of mom's money was spent litigating that issue. And so it was horrifying in the overall scheme of things, but they needed to do that. And so Valerie, thanks for reading the books and the recommendations. Super. Thank you so much. Catherine, when is it too late to plan of dementias in the picture? When you don't have capacity. When you've reached the point where you no longer have capacity, you're in guardianship. And there's no other option at that point in time to do most things. You know, you even have to, so if I wanted to do Medicaid planning and you didn't have capacity, I'd have to go in and file a temporary guardianship and hope that court will let us do just a temporary, to just do the Medicaid planning and then get out if you had power of attorneys. If you don't have power of attorneys, you're in guardianship court. And let me tell you guys, it's $4,000 to $4,500 to start that guardianship. And if you're a guardian of the person in the estate, you're going to spend $7,500 to $10,000 the first year. You have to ask the court for permission for everything. What does that mean? I have to draft a document that gets filed. You get to pay me. My hourly rate after 25 years is a little steep these days. So you don't want us to have to do those things. It's a lot cheaper to just get really good, powerful power of attorneys in place. And then guys, you need to update those a minimum of every 3 years. I don't care if you're not changing anything, you update them every 3 years. The reason being is that entities don't like to take them when they're old. And after about 3 years, they consider them old. So it's very important. I had a client use an old one of ours, and the bank required me to draft a letter to say they were competent when they signed them. Now, I don't remember if the particular client, because I've seen thousands of clients by then, but everybody in my office that signed documents is competent. So I felt good about doing that. But that was an extra step that they shouldn't have had to do if their power of attorneys were more current and up to date. And so we want you to do that. Amanda says, I'm working with more families that are struggling with getting healthcare facilities to understand that POA agents should be consulted for medical changes for their loved one. Medications just get changed without consulting with the PO attorney agent. He suggested how to stop this cycle. Your medical power of attorney is only in effect if that person is incapacitated. That medical power of attorney does not work if they can make their own decisions. So keep that in mind. The other thing too is that if you are not happy with the care that you're getting in that facility, you've got a couple of options. You can move them. You can contact your ombudsman and they can intervene for you on that behalf. It could be a little threatening. It says, look, guys, you better talk to me before you do this, or have the doctor or nurse talk to me before you do this, because I want to understand what you're doing. Because basically you're just doing stuff willy-nilly without advising me. And so sometimes you have to be a little more forceful. Go back to the nursing home, talk to the person in charge, of doing that sort of stuff. You have to kind of put them a little scared of you in the most part sometimes to get the things that you need to get done. And then if you're still not getting good care or good information or the ability to make those decisions, then you need to be thinking about, do I really want my loved one here in that aspect? Sometimes they do things quickly because they need to do so, but there's a lot of things that they should have a conversation with you. The other thing too is they have a lot of people in that facility. They had to call everybody in order to change prescriptions. Problematic, could be problematic. Ask why, ask what the procedure is, get very informed about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what you can do to be different. I understand you don't want to call everybody when you make a change. I want you to let me know. I want to know. You can pop me a quick email, tell me, says, hey, we made this medication change. Here's why we did it. You want to be informed so that way you can at least make better decisions about what's going on. Capacity, great question, Catherine. Capacity means that you understand what you're signing. I was in trial on a different case, and I had a doctor that told me that as long as the person understood what they were signing at the time they signed it, regardless if they didn't know their own name prior to that, it was still a valid, they still had capacity. Now, every other doctor I've ever talked to said that's not the case. And because I couldn't imagine in my wildest dreams. If you can't, throughout our interview process, and it's very conversational, just talking to figure out where you're at, then we send you back to the doctor to get a letter that says you have capacity. If you've got children that don't agree on care and things like that, that there's going to be a problem, I always send you back for a letter of capacity that just says, hey, my patient has has capacity to sign legal documents, because that keeps the kids from fighting and pulling you into litigation later. So sometimes we do it as just to make sure that you're not necessarily to make sure you're okay, but to make sure we can, keep future litigation at bay, because a lot of times that's going to be really important, and capacity is just a matter of understanding. And so, yes, Mary, we do work with Medicaid applications. And so absolutely. And we use a lot of irrevocable trust, but you got to beat Medicaid's 5-year look back. Okay. You can only put in those income only irrevocable trusts. You can only put non-retirement assets. You can only put assets that are not exempt, like your home is an exempt asset as long as it's not in a trust. You've got one car that's an exempt. Your life insurance, your term life insurance is exempt. Whole life insurance that has less than a $1,500 in cash value is exempt, but they add all the life insurance together. So if it's more than $1,500, then it's a problem. But we use things like investment accounts, rental properties, money sitting in the bank, CDs, bonds, the things that Medicaid requires you to spend down. Those are the things that we put in that irrevocable trust. And so in order to do that, your power of attorney has to say you can, because you're basically gifting into that trust because it's irrevocable. So you've got to have the power to create the trust and to gift more than just the federal tax exemption, which right now is $16,000, and in January it's going to be $17,000. This is the first time in years it's gone up. Last year, when it went to 16, it's the first time in probably 10, 15 years that it's ever gone up. And now it hadn't been 16,000, but a couple of years, and it's going up again. So that's very surprising. So really having money in the bank. Now, you want that money to earn income so that you can push the income back out to you, Mary. So if it's just sitting in a savings account, it's not really going to do anything for you, but it is protected. So if you don't need the money, no problem. But if you need the income, we want to put it in some type of safe investment account so that it produces some income for you, but the principal itself is what's protected. So we're always protecting principal. Can't protect income from Medicaid. That income is going to get paid to either to the nursing home or the spouse at home. But you can always protect principal, and that's what we're looking to protect. And so, Mary, I don't know if you can unmute to explain. You would have to ask Catherine. You would have to ask Catherine about that. So you're more than welcome to come in and sit down and visit with us. You're more than welcome to do that.
She can unmute. She can unmute if she'd like.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, Ms. Hegwood, my situation is my mother doesn't have any property, but she has money in the bank. We have applied for Medicaid some years ago. Of course, she was denied because she had too much money in the bank. So she just recently moved in with me in June, and I was appointed power of attorney, so of her medical and durability. So that's why I'm trying to gather all of this information, because we're going to try again to apply for Medicaid. And we were told by an elder law attorney through AARP that there are ways that we can help get her on Medicaid with this money in the bank. Is that true? Or
well, you're going to have to do something with the money, but there are strategies that you can do to get her, there's strategies you're gonna have to do to get her qualified for Medicaid. She can't have more than $2,000 just sitting in the bank and qualify. So, when you're single, you're limited, but there are strategies you can do. Like I can do something with the money depending on how much it is. There are things I can do with it. So depending on, it depends on what you want to do, and how you're willing to spend money and things like that. So there are things depending on the amount of money, depends on what we do. And so if it's minimal, if it's just $20,000 and she doesn't own a car, you may go buy her a car. If we're talking $200,000, then that's a different ball game. Then there's a lot of different types of options we can do. So then we want to sit back and say, what do you want to do? And everything is sitting down with mom and saying, here are some strategies. Which one do you want? And it may be, I know which one might benefit her and I know which one might benefit you. It's a matter of what does she want to do? So as long as she has the capacity to tell me, that's what we would do for her, is to say, hey, this is what we want to do. And this is what we recommend, or you can do A, B, or C, and I can still get you qualified either way. It's a matter of how do you want to do it. And so the goal is to really sit down and figure out, I don't want to ask you while you're on the show today how much money mom has. I don't want to do that. And so, but I can sit down with you and we'll go through all that stuff, because we ask a lot of personal information all the time to do when you're doing estate planning. I want to know what your income is, where it's coming from. I want to know what all your assets are, all broken down, what you have in checking, savings, IRAs, 401ks, and things like that, because depending on where your assets are, depends on what I can do. So we always ask you for that personal information. You have attorney-client privilege. I always tell clients, you come and tell me anything. And as long as you're not abusing an elder or a child, I can't talk, so, the goal is we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to tell us everything, family dynamics, because I want to know about the family, because I can plan a little better. If I know I got a bad kid out there that's going to create problems, I know what to do to put in place and what steps need to be done in order to take care of that. Because then you want those people in place that can know how you do that. I litigated early in my practice. I can spot a problem no matter how often you tell me your kids are angels. You're going to say something and I can tell you already which kid is going to be the problem. I laugh and tell clients all the time, if you've got 3 or more kids, there's always one kid that's not as good as the others. Everybody laughs because they know it's right. It just seems the law of averages. There's the number of kids. There's always one that just is a little problematic. Maybe not necessarily bad, but not as good as the other ones. And so, so all those kind of things come into play when you're thinking about that. So, and that's what, those are the things that I would tell you, Mary. There are options. There are multiple. There's probably 2 to 3 different strategies that you can do. And it's just a matter of, which one, benefits mom. Catherine asked, does a spouse automatically have power of attorney if their spouse is incapacitated? So when you're married, you have the right to make emergency medical decisions. And most doctors will let you make medical decisions because the health and safety code allows you to do that. And so, but you don't have the right to access their medical records. So if somebody messes up, things like that, you can't get that information if you need to take it from one doctor to another. If they're single, if it's just mom or dad, and you've got, 3 children standing in the, emergency room, waiting room, and the doctor comes out and says, here are your choices, and the kids can't agree, the doctor gets to decide, so, and doctors, especially if they're surgeons, like to cut things open. So you may not want that provision, so you want to make sure that you put the things in place with the right people in place. Don't put somebody making medical decisions for you that can't make hard decisions. In our directive to physicians, we went back and we listed the things that that somebody's going to ask about. Do you want a breathing machine? Do you want CPR? If you're terminal or incapacitated and you're never going to get any better, do you want these things? Do you want dialysis? Do you want a feeding tube? Because I think it's important for you guys as clients or potentially new clients to make those hard decisions yourselves so someone else doesn't have to. But if you don't, then someone else has to. So talk to them, talk to your family, talk to your agents about lots of different scenarios, just really have a conversation. And Thanksgiving is right around the corner. The families are all together. It's a great time to talk about long-term care and what it might look like. You're going to get pushback from one or more of the kids that says, oh, it's the holidays. We don't want to talk about this. Put your foot down. I always tell people, give them your mom voice. Okay. and tell them all to sit down and do it in your mom voice. They will do it and they will listen, and say, look, now's a good time. You're all together. Let's talk about some things that may occur and then things that I want you to know and how y'all would want to handle things. I have a lot of clients that let their children decide who's going to be an agent under a power of attorney, who's going to be financial, who's going to be medical, and they do it over the holidays, so it's a great time to sit down with family and really have those conversations about what kind of care do you want. My mom is very emphatic that we don't put her in the nursing home. We pick her all the time and tell her if she's not a good mom, we're gonna put her in the worst one, because you got to tease your mom every now and then. But that's important to her. So we got to figure out how to accomplish what she wants without killing the rest of us, or breaking the bank, so because it's going to be on us, the kids, to take care of my mom. So how is that going to look and what does it look like? So it's really important to have the conversation that, and we've even had to have it with mom. We've started that conversation. Let's say, mom, you can't stay home. What's your next option? If you can't stay home, what's option B? And what does it look like? So you kind of want to start the conversation so that they have some kind of idea of what's plan A, what's plan B, what's plan C, because you want to be very prepared and you want them to be thinking about it. Catherine asked that, can you give power of attorney to more than one person? We'd like to do those in order, first, second, third, because I don't want to have battles over people who can't agree. In a medical power of attorney, you can only put one at a time anyway, because you have to have that one person making the decision. Now, families never usually make big decisions without talking to each other. Very few families do that. And so it's usually just a matter of having a conversation with your siblings. But the one person has to be able to say, this is what we're going to do. And so anything else, guys? Because I want to make sure we're going to be running out of time here. I want to make sure that you got what you wanted when you came. So don't hesitate to put a question in the chat and ask. I'm happy to definitely, answer the questions that you have today. I mean, that's the whole purpose of us being on and helping you do all these things is to get you the information that you came for, because that's why you're here today, to get the information that you came for, and to make sure that you are taken care of, and to make sure that you have all the things that you need. So don't hesitate to let us know. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you don't want to give them today, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But I'm game for today if you've got something you want to talk about. Catherine, any more questions you think that they may want that they're not thinking about? Because I've a little overwhelmed them maybe with lots of information.
I don't think so. I think you've covered a lot of material, and I'm sure people will pop up with ideas and questions they have. And some of them have questions, but they may want to meet with you personally, privately, to ask those questions. So reach out to Kim. She put a Candly link so you can go ahead and go into her schedule, and she put that in the chat. So make sure you get that link and go ahead and schedule an appointment with Kim if you need that. She also put her phone number too.
Hi, what do I need to bring with me when I come to see you? Because I'm going to come and I'll bring you like all the numbers, the values of things. What else? My old will. What else do I need to bring?
So you're going to get what we call a personal and financial information form. When you schedule an appointment, that form gets emailed to you. That's the form I want you to fill out. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any old documents that you have, by all means, bring them in. And so for the most part, depending on what kind of documents you have, I may or may not look real hard and heavy at them, because what you did then may not be what you want now. And so it's really important to make sure that we have the conversation about what do you want now? Because a lot of people had stuff done a long time ago. And they're like, okay, my kids were little and I had this done to protect them, but now they're grown. So now we got to think of a different plan, or, so it's really just a matter of filling out the paperwork, sending it back, and let us give you some options to give you a good plan.
Sounds great. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Not a problem. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Anything else? Anybody else want to ask a question?
5 more minutes. If anybody has a question, put it in quickly.
Kathy, you're not on mute, just so you know. I want you to be doing anything that's going to catch up with you. In my office, would be talking to the dog that's normally running around here. One of my team members has a puppy, so y'all could come in and see Bentley. So if you come into my office and you're afraid of dogs, please let us know ahead of time, because Bentley is a jewel. He's an elderly dog, and he's more afraid of you some days, but he's super, super, super friendly. Loves to be petted, loves to meet everybody that comes through the door. And but you're afraid of dogs, please let us know ahead of time so we can make sure he's put away. But he's a sweet dog. And if you want to see a picture of him, he's under Junior Associates on the website. He was here the day we had new pictures done. So, Catherine, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to educate your listeners. And so I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I appreciate it immensely.
Kim, I can't thank you enough. We appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge.